Helen stood at the edge of her garden, the warm summer sun soaking into her back as she watched a butterfly flit between the daisies. At 63, she found herself in a strange season of life. Not quite old, but no longer young. Retirement had arrived quietly. Her children were grown, scattered across states. The house was too big now, and the days stretched longer than they used to. She had thought this part of life would bring peace, but instead it felt heavy. Not because of what was happening, but because of what she was still holding on to. It wasn't until a conversation with her neighbor Linda, sharp witted and 75, that Helen began to see things differently. "You look tense," Linda had said one morning as they shared coffee on the porch. "I guess I just feel stuck, like I'm still carrying things I thought I'd outgrow," Helen admitted. Linda had chuckled softly. "Honey, getting older doesn't mean we automatically feel lighter. You've got to let things go, piece by piece." That simple advice echoed in Helen's mind for days. One afternoon, she sat down with a notebook and wrote a question at the top. What am I still carrying that no longer serves me? And slowly, 6 things began to take shape, things she would need to release to truly live with meaning in this next chapter of life. Were 1, the need to please everyone. Helen had spent her whole life trying not to upset people. She said yes to every request, smiled when she wanted to scream, agreed when she disagreed. But after 60, the weight of constant people-pleasing had become unbearable. She realized that time was too precious to spend on obligations rooted in guilt or fear of disapproval. She started small. When her cousin invited her to a weekend she didn't want to attend, she declined politely, with no excuse. And nothing terrible happened. The world didn't end. It felt like taking off tight shoes. 2, regret over the past. One afternoon, Helen was sorting through an old photo album when she paused on a picture of herself in her 30s. Her eyes looked tired even then. She remembered that season, working full-time, raising kids, helping her mother through cancer. I should have done better, she thought. But then she looked closer, and she saw someone who was doing her best. Helen began to let go of the regrets. The marriage that didn't work, the job she left too soon, the friendships that faded. She wrote herself a letter, forgiving the woman she was then. Not perfect, but trying. Regret, she learned, was a thief that only stole from the present. The 3, the fear of aging. Helen had always fought aging, creams, hair dye, clothes that promised to make her look 10 years younger. But inside, she was tired of hiding from time. One morning, she let her hair dry naturally, gray streaks and all. She didn't rush to cover the fine lines around her mouth. She looked in the mirror and saw not decay, but history. A woman who had lived, loved, and survived. With every year, she had become more herself. And slowly, she stopped fearing the mirror. Of 4, possessions that no longer matter. The attic was full. Boxes of clothes, old electronics, broken Christmas decorations, papers from a job she no longer had. Helen realized she was holding on to things that once mattered, but didn't anymore. Each object was a weight from another life. So she started purging. At first it was hard. Each item seemed to whisper a memory. But with every bag she donated, she felt freer. By the end of the month, the attic was half empty, and she no longer felt like her past was sitting above her, collecting dust. 5, toxic relationships. There were a few people, one old friend, a distant cousin, who left Helen feeling drained every time they spoke. Guilt had kept her in touch, but it wasn't real connection. She had spent decades trying to fix or maintain those relationships. But at 63, she no longer had the energy to keep watering dead plants. With compassion but clarity, she let them go. She stopped answering out of obligation, and instead poured her energy into the people who gave love back. Number 6, the belief that her best days were behind her. Perhaps the heaviest weight Helen carried was the quiet belief that her best years were already over. Her children had grown. Her career was behind her. The grand adventures she'd dreamed of never quite happened. But one morning, walking through the farmer's market alone, she heard a street musician playing an old jazz tune. She stopped, closed her eyes, and let the music wash over her. In that small, perfect moment, something shifted. She didn't need big milestones or dramatic accomplishments to live a meaningful life. The best days weren't in the past. They were in front of her, waiting to be noticed. From then on, Helen approached each day with quiet openness. She learned the names of the baristas at the cafe, She joined a watercolor class. She began writing little essays just for herself. Her life became fuller, not through addition, but through subtraction. Letting go of those 6 things didn't happen all at once. It was a process, a shedding of old skin. But with every release, Helen felt lighter, more alive. One evening, as she watched the sun slip below the horizon, she whispered, "I'm still becoming." Because after 60, life doesn't end, it simply changes shape. And when you let go of what no longer serves you, there's space to embrace what truly matters.